Pauline and Felicity were the perfect picture of success. The man was a civil engineer, trusted to design and supervise big projects across the city, while Felicity worked as a smart, hardworking banker. She was one of those women who carried herself with confidence, always neatly dressed and respected by her clients. They had one precious treasure named love. She was a cheerful and curious little girl. At first, life felt balanced. Adrian often rushed home early to play with love, stacking toy blocks into towers, while Felicity kept weekends free for the family. But as time went by, responsibilities grew heavier. Felicity's bank began giving her more files to handle, late-night reports and endless customer calls. Adrian too became busier with projects that demanded site visits and late-night planning. Slowly, their family rhythm changed. Evenings that once echoed with laughter turned quiet. Love often sat on the floor with her teddy bear waiting for mommy or daddy to join her, but most times they were either buried in laptops or talking about work. One night, Felicity came home tired, dropped her bag and went straight to her laptop. Love tugged her mother's hand and whispered, "Mom, are you too busy to love me now?" The word struck Felicity deeply that she froze, staring at her little girl, and then she realized that in chasing success, she and Adrian, her husband, were slowly failing at the most important assignment of all, which is being present for their child. That night, she could not sleep. She lay awake with her daughter's words echoing in her mind. "Mom, are you too busy to love me now?" The next morning, she shared her feelings with Adrian, and they both admitted that their busy lives were eating into the joy of their family. They wanted success, oh yes, but not at the cost of losing their daughter's childhood. So they agreed to employ a house help, not someone to replace their roles as parents, but to take care of the house chores and all the things that usually took Felicity's weekends and Adrian's energy after work. This way, when they returned home, their time would be reserved for their daughter. They interviewed carefully, making sure they chose a respectful young lady who understood boundaries. When they finally brought the new house help into their home, everything seemed perfect at first. Her name was Miriam, a quiet, respectful young woman in her early 20s. She spoke politely, did the chores neatly, and always kept to herself. To the parents, it felt like they had found the perfect solution. The house was tidy, meals were ready in time, and laundry no longer piled up. Felicity and Adrian could now give more attention to their work, believing that Love would also be happier since they had more time for her. But something was wrong. From the very first night, Love didn't seem at ease. Normally, she was a cheerful child, running up and down the house with her teddy bear. But whenever Miriam entered her room, she would suddenly stop whatever she was doing. Sometimes she would jump up from the toy mat and run straight to her mother. Other times she would clutch her teddy tightly, staring at Miriam as though she was afraid. One evening, Felicity walked into Love's room and found her sitting on the bed trembling. "What is it, my baby?" she asked, gathering Love in her arms. "Mom?" Love whispered, pointing at Miriam, who had just entered to arrange the toys. "I don't like her hair. I think she's not the right person to work here." Felicity's heart skipped. She looked at Miriam, who stood silently with her head bowed. Then she turned back to her little girl. "No, darling, she's here to help us, and she's the right person for this job. So, my darling, she won't hurt you." But Love shook her head violently and buried her face in her mother's chest, and her mom found a way to put her to sleep. But it didn't stop there. If Miriam tried to feed her, Love would push the spoon away and cry until Felicity or Adrian came. Once, when Miriam bent down to pick up Love's toy, Love screamed so loudly that Adrian rushed into the room thinking she had been hurt. "What's wrong?" he asked, lifting his daughter. "I don't like her," she said, holding the toy tightly against her chest. Adrian exchanged a worried look with Felicity. They had never seen their daughter so fearful before. At first, Adrian thought it was just jealousy, that Love was not used to sharing attention with another person in the house. But Felicity couldn't shake off the feeling that maybe, just maybe, there was more to it. That night, after putting Love to bed, she told Adrian, "You know children see things we sometimes can't see. Love spirit doesn't seem to be at ease with this girl. Should we take her words more seriously? Adrian sighed. I don't know, but Miriam hasn't done anything wrong. At least not in front of us. But the way love reacts, it's unusual. Both parents lay awake, torn between appreciating the help Miriam gave them and the disturbing uneasiness their little girl was showing. But then, Miriam's hard work swallowed their fears. They tried to assure their daughter that Miriam was not evil and that she should learn to love her and accept her, and then all she feels about her will disappear. But Love kept on insisting that something was off about her. One evening after dinner, Adrian called Love to his side and said, Love, tell Daddy the truth. What exactly do you want? We know it was because of your complaints that we brought Miriam to help. Do you want us to send her away? Love's tiny hands clutched his shirt tightly. Daddy, I just want you and Mommy. I don't want her in my room. In fact, I don't want her near me. Let me even ask you, did you pray before bringing her here? Felicity, who had been listening quietly, felt a lump in her throat. She remembered the times Love had asked the same question. Mom, did you pray before bringing her here? It was too deep a question for a small girl to keep repeating unless something was troubling her spirits. That night, they knelt down with her, prayed a short prayer just to calm her down, and kept on doing so. But when the exhaustion of work was heavy, they would dismiss her words, saying, Love, be a good girl because Miriam is good. She won't hurt you. But the circle never ended. Every time Miriam entered Love's space, her discomfort grew. She would cling to her parents as though her safety depended on it. So Adrian and Felicity began to live in two minds. One part of them was grateful for Miriam's help. The house was organized, meals were so delicious, and laundry was no longer a burden. But the other part of them was disturbed. Why is our little girl's spirit so restless around this young woman? Miriam on her part tried her best to win Love's heart. She would kneel to the little girl's level and say, Love, I am your sister. I won't harm you. I am only here to help you and play with you. Sometimes she offered to read storybooks or share biscuits with her, but no matter how good she appeared, Love's spirit refused to open up. Whenever Miriam stretched out her hand, Love pulled back, and whenever Miriam entered the room, Love jumped up as if to defend herself. Finally, out of both weariness and a mother's caution, Felicity made a decision. If for nothing else, she told herself, let me install CCTV cameras in the house. At least, when Love complains, I can show her recordings and prove that Miriam has not harmed her. Maybe that will calm her spirit. She didn't tell anyone about it, not even her husband. The cameras were hidden in the sitting room, the kitchen, Love's bedroom and Miriam's room, just for installation's sake. Felicity felt a sense of relief. At least now, whenever Love cried or complained, she would sit her down and show her proof that Miriam had done nothing wrong. She was very intentional. Every evening after returning from the bank, she would drop her handbag on the sofa, slip off her heels, and sit in front of her laptop to replay the day's footage. She watched carefully as she kept on seeing Miriam sweeping the floor diligently, cooking and doing all she had been instructed to do. Not once did she see anything unusual. No harsh movements, no strange behavior, and no suspicious acts. So she was convinced that her daughter was just imagining things. For 2 weeks straight, Felicity kept at it, rushing through her workload at the bank, coming home drained and still forcing herself to watch footage into the night. But as the days passed, she grew weary. Balancing her career and home had already been hard enough. Now this extra burden of constant CCTV checking felt like a punishment because she kept on seeing the same things. To make matter worse, her promotion came during that period. At first, she rejoiced, but the promotion came with heavier workload, more reports, more late night calls and more deadlines. By the time she came home, all she wanted was to rest. With her promotion, her spiritual life also took a hit. She used to spend early mornings in prayer, committing her family to God before the day started. But now, she was always rushing, leaving before sunrise and returning late at night. Her prayers became rushed, shallow and careless. Sometimes as she ironed her clothes, she muttered, "Jesus, protect my family and Satan get away." Other times, while rushing out of the door with her handbag and car keys, she whispered, "Plus Jesus minus devil, amen." That became the routine. Quick half-hearted prayers squeezed into her schedule like an afterthought. 6 months rolled by quietly and Marian had settled well into the home. On the surface, she couldn't have asked for a better place to work. Adrian and Felicity treated her with respect. They never owed her a salary, not even once. At the end of every month, Felicity would call her into the study, count her pay in full and added a little extra for her dedication. And Miriam's eyes often watered with gratitude. In her previous jobs, she had been shouted at, underfed or even earned months of wages. But here, it was different. Felicity also went out of her way to make Miriam comfortable. She treated her not just as a maid, but almost as a younger sister. Whenever she went shopping for herself, she picked toiletries and sanitary items for Miriam too. And whenever she cleared her wardrobe, she neatly folded clothes she no longer wore and handed them over to her. Even when they went out together, Felicity never made her feel less. She would walk beside her, introduce her respectfully and sometimes even defend her if anyone tried to ask offensive questions. To outsiders, Miriam wasn't easily identified as a house help. She looked neat, carried herself well and wore decent clothes. Some even thought she was Felicity's younger cousin or a family relation. But despite all this goodness, love still said, "Mommy, I don't like her." And she still asked, "Did you pray before bringing her?" And though Felicity tried to wave it off, a small part of her sometimes wondered, but why can't my daughter's spirits accept this girl even after all these months? And because love had refused to accept her, Marian had fewer chances to bond with her. The rejection wounded her pride, but in her heart, she knew that the girl's instinct was right because she earnestly desired to have a dream. Slowly, she began to change her appearance. With the clothes Felicity had given her, she picked out the shorter dresses and skirts. She would stand before the mirror, adjust herself carefully and smile at her reflection. Every evening, she would wait for Adrian to return from work. The moment she heard his car horn, she would rush to the door smiling too widely, standing too close and sometimes even swinging her hips in an exaggerated way. The first time she wore a dress that exposed more than it should, he raised his eyes slightly, then lowered them immediately. He cleared his throat and said, "Miriam, go and change your clothes. That outfit is not decent for this house." She apologized nervously. "I am sorry, sir. I didn't realize that." Then she rushed off to her room to change. Another time, when she bent too carelessly while serving him food, Adrian frowned and said firmly, "Miriam, you need to be careful. Dress properly and respect yourself unless you are tired of this job." Again, she apologized. "I am sorry, sir," and she quickly adjusted. No matter how much she tried, Adrian didn't look her way. He was a disciplined man, committed to his wife, and he valued his home too much to entertain such temptation. He never shouted at her, but he drew boundaries clearly. To him, she was only a helper and nothing more. But to Miriam, every rejection only deepened her obsession. She told herself, "If I can just catch him on a weekday, he will be mine. He cannot resist me forever. Never. So I will keep pressing on until I reach my goal." When all her efforts to seduce Adrian failed, her desire turned into desperation. She had convinced herself that Adrian was the only man for her, and if she couldn't have him by normal means, she would get him by force. So one weekend, she obtained permission with one packaged lie and traveled secretly to her auntie's village. This auntie was known for her dark practices. Auntie, Miriam said, her voice trembling but determined. I have found the man I want. He is good. He is kind, and I cannot let him go. But he does not see me. Auntie, please help me. I want him to love me more than his wife and do everything I want. The woman looked at her for a long moment, then she chuckled. So you want to tie a married man's heart? You will pay the price, oh. I am ready, Auntie, Miriam replied. The woman gave her a small calabash decorated with cowries and dark markings. Keep this in your room. Whenever you want him, call his name into it. His spirit will obey and he will come to you like a child to his mother. Miriam's heart pounded, but she took it eagerly and traveled back. At first, nothing seemed different. But one night after Felicity came home exhausted and fell into a deep sleep, a dream began to stir strangely. He tossed, turned, and then quietly stood from the bed. Without even thinking clearly, he walked straight into Miriam's room, and Miriam was waiting because she had spoken to the calabash. From that night, a dream was no longer himself. The strong man who once resisted her became like a puppet on a string. Whenever Felicity snored from her heavy sleep, he would slip away like a thief in the night. In Miriam's room, he laughed, he played, and he touched like a man under a spell. And each time, Miriam would whisper in her heart, "Now he is mine. Let me quickly trap him forever with pregnancy." To the outside world, everything still looked normal. A dream was still working. Felicity was still busy at the bank and Miriam was still the helpful maid. But inside the house, a dangerous betrayal had begun. A woman of kindness and truth was being mocked in her own home, while the innocent child love continued to carry a heavy unease in her spirit. It became so bad that a dream would return earlier than usual from work and then take Miriam out. He would take her to quiet places where he thought nobody would notice. When it was almost time for Felicity to return from work, he would rush back and make sure everything looked normal. If Love asked, "Daddy, where did you go to?" he would quickly lie. "Oh my dear, I just went to check something at the site." But even at her young age, Love's spirit was not deceived. She could sense the difference. She noticed how her father's eyes changed, how he laughed too easily with Miriam, and how he avoided certain questions. One quiet evening, Felicity returned home looking tired but cheerful. She had just received another congratulatory mail at work for meeting her targets. Her promotion had come with many benefits and she felt proud of herself. As she dropped her bag and removed her shoes, Love climbed onto the sofa beside her, held her hand and looked into her eyes with a seriousness far beyond her years. "Mommy," she said, "don't you think there is fire on the mountain? And don't you think you are losing more than you think you are gaining?" Felicity laughed gently, brushing the child's hair. "No, my dear. Look around you. Can't you see? I have been promoted. My salary has increased and we live in a comfortable house. You are fine, happy and healthy, and your daddy's work is moving on so well. So tell me, where am I losing?" Love's eyes watered. She shook her head in disagreement and whispered, "Mommy, I should be asking you. Can't you see?" Those words pierced Felicity's heart for a moment, but almost immediately she pushed them aside. To her, Love was not just a sweet girl, but she was also an over-imaginative child. She kissed her forehead and said, "Don't worry, my darling, everything is fine." But one spirit still asked her, "Are you sure your little girl is not seeing something you are blind to?" Love on her part realized her mother was too focused on work, promotions and money and she would never listen to her, so she told herself silently, "My mommy is very stubborn, so I won't say anything again. I will just get a proof." Though she was only a small child, but her spirit was sharp. She had noticed how her father sometimes went out to Miriam and then Miriam would enter the house first and her father would follow like 5 minutes after. She didn't know exactly what was going on, but she also knew it wasn't right and that they were trying to play smart. From that day, she became more watchful. Anytime her father and Miriam stepped out, she would quietly tiptoe into Miriam's room to search for clues. She didn't know what she was looking for, but something in her told her there was more going on than anyone could see. So my dear Karma tribe, I ask you, what do you think will happen in episode 2? Will Love see the calabash, and will her mother believe her this time? Please share your thoughts with me in the comments, and please don't also forget to give the story a thumbs up and also share out to your loved ones. If you have not subscribed to this channel, I beg you in the name of God to punch on that subscribe button so that you can join the Karma tribe. Until I bring the next part of the story your way, it's a goodbye from here, and God bless you.